We're walking through security and this and that, and people are just staring. I can feel them staring, even though I can't see them.
The overall scheme of things, if you look at that sort of time frame from a point of view of when you're born to when you die, that's only a very, very, very small part, or time of your life.
Thanks for tuning in. This has been Hermit Radio. Welcome back to Hermit Radio. I'm your host, Cameron, and today's podcast episode is going to be another segment of Zen Time with Cameron. Today's episode, I'm going to be doing a book review, and we're going to be discussing Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior, written by Chogyam Trungpa. And I apologize if I totally messed that name up. I really enjoyed this book. I felt that it, at its core, is everything that I've been talking about over the last couple episodes of my podcast. In this book, the warrior that they're referring to, it's not necessarily meant to say that he's aggressive or violent. What they're trying to say is that the warrior, in their sense, is somebody who's brave enough to be themselves no matter who they're around, and brave enough to be positive no matter what situation occurs. I know what you might be thinking, and I've talked to people about this before. Say, you can't be positive all the time. There's no way you can do that. That's impossible. Impossible is a limitation set by your ego. I've seen the same very monks punch through a brick with their bare hands. If you don't believe me, you can YouTube that. There's videos of it. My point is that it is at the simplest way to explain it, mind over matter. What I love about this book is that it gives you a way to see things almost like a different avenue. Instead of choosing to be sad or mad about something, this gives you another way to look at it to where you're like, oh, I don't feel so badly about it. I'm not saying you're going to be able to use this for everything in life, but what I am saying is that it has helped me in some occasions get over something. And I really feel like it's a great way of living life. It's not telling you have to do anything crazy. It's just saying you're a small piece of sand on the beach that is the universe. Make yourself a little bit smaller and the world doesn't seem so bad. A little bit about the author, Chogyam Trungpa. He was also a scholar, a teacher, and a poet. He was known for, in his younger days, helping free people trying to flee the Chinese Liberation Army. And there were times where they were literally being shot at while they were crossing rivers trying to help people escape. And to do that without any firearms or means of defending yourself, that takes a lot of courage, a lot of bravery. But that's how strongly he felt about helping others. After that, years later, he came to the West to teach people about Buddhism and the Shambhala practice. He didn't always have a great reputation. He had a reputation for sleeping with his students, drinking excessively. Those are not some of the qualities that come to my mind when you think of a Tibetan monk master. But that was the way he was. That was his unique, special way of teaching and being a person. So when you take a look at this book at a whole and what it is, it's giving you two options. Seeing this for what it is and then letting it bother you for the rest of your day, or seeing it on the other hand, putting yourself into another point of view and allowing yourself to work through it. Some of the more important parts of the book I find are some of the quotes that are in there from him, And some of them are just absolutely beautiful. I have one here that I'm going to read. And if it doesn't necessarily make sense, that's okay. It's just, for some people, it'll really resonate. This chapter was the Universal Monarch. The challenge of warriorship is to step out of the cocoon, to step out into space by being brave and at the same time being gentle. So what they're really trying to say there, again, being brave. Be brave enough to be yourself. Be brave enough to be positive all the time, no matter who's around you, what they're talking about, because it doesn't matter. What matters is you and only you, and you get to make the choice what you want to do with your life. You get to make the choice of what emotions you allow to be expressed outside of yourself. And that's pretty much the whole rhythm of the book. It's not a super long read, but it can be dense. I found myself having to read a couple chapters and then put it down and sit and think on it. Because sometimes you're just reading and you're like, wow, that nailed it on the head. That makes a lot of sense. And it's not for everybody. I've had a bunch of people ask me if I'm Buddhist or if I have some type of religion. I don't subscribe to any religion. I like Buddhism and what it stands for. I think it's beautiful. And I believe that whatever makes you happy and whatever belief system you want to choose to believe in, I feel like you should. There shouldn't be any reason to discourage somebody from their religion or their practice. They're all tools meant to help you get through life. That's why they're there. That's why they exist. What this book meant to me was that you can choose a different path. I went from somebody who was mean and angry all the time and pissed off all the time to now every day when I am faced with a troubling situation or not an ideal predicament, I try to put myself into another state of mind. How can I see this positively? How can I change my perspective? And when you can start doing that regularly, it becomes essential to everyday life. There are so many times now where I find myself having the thought of being frustrated and then totally voiding it out by thinking of something positive. You know what? This isn't worth it. I'm not worried about it. As a matter of fact, on our Reddit page, somebody left a comment on there asking me what I thought about Buddhism and how Buddhism makes people docile and not active and makes them passive aggressive. And of course, for anybody that knows anything about Buddhism, in Buddhism, there's no reason to argue. So there's really no point in even saying anything back because there's no reason to argue. There's no reason to create the negative energy that it takes to make an argument. However, what I said in return was, being a Buddhist doesn't mean that you're docile. Being docile means you do nothing. But people who practice Buddhism, they still pay taxes. They still go to work. They still raise families. They still do everything that everyone else does. The only difference is that they choose to live a life that's conducive to peace and happiness versus negativity and violence. And I've had this conversation so many times that I can't even count. What would the world look like if we had a little bit more of that in it? What if the next time you got in an argument with somebody, or were about to, you have the thought, you know what? This isn't worth it. I'm not going to do that. And then you turn the other cheek. Say, you know what? I'm sorry. This wasn't worth it. Let's not argue about it. I believe that we could be living in a totally different place if we could do that. I totally understand not everybody's going to get there, and that's just the way it is. However, that's my take on it. That was a great book. If you are interested, you can find it on my social medias. I'll be posting it there. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and it's just hermit_radio. It is also Wednesday, and I'm going to be doing some shout outs for other podcasters in our network. If you're interested in joining our podcast network, you can message me on any of the social medias and I'll add you to it. But today's shout outs include bots_podcast, Bad Rad Movies, Tales of Hope Pod, and Murder on Tap. So in the coming weeks, I'll be releasing more of these Wednesday shout outs so that people can get included. So if you're interested, message me on social media and we'll get you signed up for it. So that's something else that we're doing. I'm trying to do more to promote other podcasts and get the word out there so that we can hear some great stuff. I've got some really good ones coming up. Vancouver True Crime has a really, really interesting Instagram and podcast. So if you're interested in that one, he's also getting a shout out today. Other than that, everybody, thanks for listening. This has been Hermit Radio and Zen Time with Cameron. I hope you enjoyed.